Welcome back to the show, everybody. And if you are watching this, welcome to my secondary podcast studio that I set up this morning. And once I go through today's announcement, you'll understand why I'm in a new space. And there's lots of really exciting things to share with you. But this podcast is going to give you a dose of motivation, inspiration, and the empowerment that you need to literally take 2026 by the reins. And no matter how far off track you feel like you've gotten from your goals, no matter how far away you are from those New Year's resolutions that you set in January, you are going to walk away with some tools, with a shifted mindset, and a plan to go put into action today, July 1st, so that you can claim the rest of the year. We are at the exact mid-year point, and you have every capability to reclaim this year and make the next 6 months so incredibly powerful. Welcome to Brain Body Speak, the podcast that bridges the worlds of psychology, somatic healing, neuroscience, and energetics, as well as holistic health. I'm Holly Joy McCabe, here to help you understand complex topics by breaking them down into straightforward concepts and practical examples so you can understand your brain, your body, your nervous system, and your conscious and subconscious mind. The knowledge you'll find in this show will be your secret weapon as you learn the language of health, happiness, and success. We'll dive deep into unique perspectives on topics like mental and physical health, mindset, trauma healing, and so much more, offering you actionable tools and insights to transform each area of your life. And hey, if you're a business owner or CEO looking for all of these topics specifically catered to entrepreneurship, make sure to check out my other show, The Regulated CEO. Let's dive in. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story and journey and how I've been navigating goal setting this past year. I'm going to give you a framework with 3 specific steps to take to assess your goals and really get realigned with what matters and how to make that happen, how to prioritize things. And then I'm also going to share with you some really cool, exciting news for me as a whole and what the brain body movement is really headed towards as we go through the second half of this year. So buckle up and let's get ready to take this year back into our control and make big things happen. All right, guys, so let's dive in. We're going to start with a little bit of a harsh reality check, but don't worry, we're not going to stay in the ick of it. We're not going to sit and wallow and beat ourselves up. We're going to look at the data. We're going to look at the facts. We're going to assess, address, and move forward. And the first part of this process is going to be really looking at the reality. So through this podcast, I'm going to kind of break down the steps and the process and how you evaluate. And in tandem, I'm going to be telling you my personal story and journey and how I'm applying this same framework and how I've shifted my year quite dramatically from how the last year and even the year before that went. So the number one first thing that you need to do is kind of take a big, courageous step towards that journal or that note section or that document that you made on January 1st of this year and really do an inventory check. Really look at, have I hit these goals? Have I abandoned these goals? Am I close to these goals, but I'm like 20%, 30%? Am I almost there? Good enough? Like, you really want to get clear with yourself of where you're at based on the goals that you set at the beginning of the year. And I'll tell you how this had kind of came up for me. So last year, 2025, it was the final year of my 30s. And if you followed along my journey at all, you might have seen that I really set out and I set every big goal to finish my book, to do the most on every single category of life I did, because I was really desperate to feel like I was reclaiming that last year of being in my 30s before I hit the big milestone of 40. And well, it didn't go very well. It didn't go very well at all, because I really wrote goals that my body and my capacity and my habits couldn't quite fit the bill on. It was like writing this big ginormous check and having nothing in your bank account. And I do believe that sometimes there's a place and a time to set big grand goals and push yourself. And I did that with the final goal that I set last year to run the 5K. But I also think we have to always look at our capacity and our habits to see if it really makes sense. And so, anyway, I set all these goals, and every month that went by, I wasn't hitting them. And I got in a deeper and a deeper and a deeper slump. Like I started to feel more and more like a failure and a loser. And I really got in a dark, dark place at this exact moment last year. Right at the end of June, things had been going kind of good. I was training good. There were a lot of positive things. But then everything kind of turned and my health turned. I went through a really big flare and I stopped being able to train, which is always kind of like a domino for me. It affects everything else. Then my dog got really, really, really sick. And within literally 5, 6 weeks' time, she had transitioned. And that just wrecked me again. That grief and that trauma, I was not prepared for that. Was in this training program. I had this big trip to Peru, and everything around me felt like it was falling apart. And because I had failed on so many goals, I really started to drown and feeling incapable of doing anything. I started to just this learned helplessness of everything's out of my control and it doesn't matter. And every time I take steps forward, it's 5 steps back. It just, everything was crashing in on me. And I felt like I was sinking into a really dark, dark space. And I felt like there's no way at this mid-year point to get anything done that I had set the 12-month time frame, for these goals. And it felt like there's no point. And then you know what happens when you feel like there's no point. I'm never going to do it. I've already failed. It's too late. I'm too far gone. You act like that. All of your actions and your behaviors match that. They just continue to affirm that back to you. And that started happening. So by the end of September, I had lost my little dog, Izzy. I was in a really bad place. And I just felt like, again, I kind of gave up. And then I did decide I was going to do the Peru trip. I pulled everything together literally like days before, after I had canceled this trip, canceled my flights and everything. And I said, you need to at least follow through on this. You need to go on this trip. You made these plans. You set this huge goal. This is a lifelong dream of yours. At least show up for yourself and do that. So I did that. And when I came back, I kind of had a little bit of energy and momentum, but I very quickly sunk back into, okay, well, you did the trip and then look at all this other stuff. It still didn't matter. Like that didn't magically infuse your life with all of these goals achieved. But towards the end of October, I thought to myself, I have November, December, and 7 days in January before I hit 40. And I looked at that 10, 11 weeks that I had ahead of me, and I thought, you can just go all in, Holly. You can go all in and really prove to yourself that you can do one thing. And that one thing, despite feeling like crap, despite not being able to train, being in one of the biggest flares of my life, I actually got a horrible, horrible infection on my trip. I get traveling so often puts me past my physical limits. I was sick the whole time I was there. So much stress, so much grief in my body. And I decided that I was going to do something I hadn't done in 20 years, which was run a 5K in the winter cold with my beat up body, with not only no running training background, but literally not even like the basic movement. Again, I had really stopped training hard at the end of June. So my body is very fragile. And if I don't maintain a certain amount of movement and resistance training, it kind of goes south really quickly. But I knew I needed to do something a little crazy. So here's where that you have to kind of push yourself past the norm. I could have said, I'll just, try to walk a mile every day and yada, yada, yada. I could have said, I'm just going to make my goal water drinking, but I needed something that was so big and so out of reach that it would compensate for all of these failed goals over here. Like that was kind of my thinking. If I do something so insane that I won't even believe that I did it, that will make up for all of these failures. And I needed that so desperately bad. And for anyone that doesn't know, a quick little note with my chronic illness and my health conditions, I'm not exaggerating when I say this, but running a 5K or running at all, much less in the winter after everything that I went through, was the equivalent of saying I'm going to go train and climb Mount Everest in 10 weeks. It was so out of my capacity and my ability and the facts and my conditions, but I knew I needed to do it. So long story short, I signed up, I did that. My race got canceled. There was this snow apocalypse in Charlotte, like a historic snowstorm the day of. So the race got canceled and I had committed so hard. I had went out there in 8 degrees and through rain and sleet and every single thing that could be uncomfortable, and I had shown up for myself. So I had to get that race done on January 31st for my birthday month to kind of put a stamp on this is how I'm entering into my 40s. This is how I'm doing it. And this is the energy, the commitment, the intensity, the follow through that I'm bringing. And I had to prove to myself that I was capable. So I did the thing January 31st. I turned 40 January 7th. There wasn't a race on January 7th, so I had to just find one in my birthday month. I did it. And then I was just, okay, let me cozy up and let me eat some junk food and, celebrate. I don't have to go out and run in the cold 3 times a week as I hate the cold. And February comes along. And February comes along and I find myself just kind of in a rut. I stopped running even though I had planned to continue because my hip was really, really, really jacked up. I did not do myself any favors with that run. Again, I was not really conditioned for it and my body was so, so beat up. And a week goes by and another week goes by and another week goes by. And towards the end of February, I had gained a few pounds. I wasn't exercising. I was kind of eating like crap. I was in that little like burrow, just be cozy. I want to hibernate mode. And normally I do that in December. But because I was documenting my journey and I was doing so much in December, it was almost like my body was like, hey, we need this burrow month. Like we need this chill time to just whatever. It doesn't ever really serve me to do that. So the end of February comes along and I start realizing, wow, I went really far backwards and I didn't have another goal set up for myself. And then I realized that I had done that race so that I could feel like someone who follows through, who does the hard thing no matter what. To remember that I have this inner athlete and this person inside who can do really hard shit, right? Who can show up and push through any level of discomfort, no matter what, against all odds. And I did that. And the irony of the day that I had to do it, what I had to face to follow through on it is just really kind of funny. That was what I wanted. That was what I needed. It wasn't about the race. Like running one single 5K in your life doesn't do you any favors. It was what it did for me and how I felt about myself and my identity. But what happened is because the year before, and even again, the couple years before that, a lot of things weren't going right and I wasn't following through on everything and I was maybe juggling too much and I was dealing with a lot of grief and pain and trauma and things that felt like they were constantly pushing me back. I had a lot of data to support why bother? It doesn't matter. You can't follow through. All of those negative things that I mentioned at the beginning of this. And then I had this one little pocket of 10 weeks of pushing hard and doing the hard thing against all odds. It wasn't quite enough to level the playing field, right? And so suddenly I realized it was like the first week of March, I think, where I was like, you need to start get moving, like get out and go for a walk at least. Like you cannot let yourself continue to just sink into this. And I realized that I had let fear very quickly in my exhaustion and in my just being beat down and not having a follow through state of mind, I had let my old identity fully occupy my mental headspace again. Again, you don't have goals because why set goals? Because you're not going to achieve them anyway. And it was almost like I had done this one big thing and it was so far out of my wheelhouse that I just didn't have the capacity to even think about a goal, to think about doing anything else hard. And then my belief system was like, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. So don't even bother. And so I realized that I still had a lot of work to do to heal and to really get my headspace in a different state of mind with a new identity that says, I didn't just do one hard thing one time as a singular event, but I have all these other failures. I keep pushing myself and I keep optimizing myself and I keep exhibiting discipline and structure and grit in my life until I get to where I want to go in all areas, right? And so because my health is so fragile and it's again such a domino, it's like the lever that kind of controls everything else. I was like, you just need to get your head back in the game with your nutrition. My nutrition had been very scattered, kind of not eating or overeating or eating half-ass. I mean, it was just kind of all over the place, even while training for that marathon. or the marathon. My mind thinks it was a marathon. So training for that 5K. And so I was like, you need to make sure that you're eating enough. Like, start getting back on the food prep. Like, start making sure you're getting enough protein. Start getting into the gym. Like, pull out your fitness app. I have a fitness app I use called Ladder, and I love it. I was like, get busy. Get your head back in the game, because it wasn't just about starting 40 strong with one singular thing. Are you going to let your entire first year of your 40s go to shit after this? And so I had a really tough conversation with myself. And it was about my identity and who I want to be and how I want to see myself long term going forward from 40 and beyond for my entire decade. And I was like, don't you dare let this year just pass you by and accept failure as the inevitable thing, to accept mediocre goals and effort as the norm and the acceptable standard that you have. And so I started getting really radical about everything, about my nutrition, about my training, about not missing a day, about not letting myself slack, about pushing myself a little harder, which is difficult to gauge for me in the gym, but just giving it a go, saying maybe you can do 10 more pounds. Maybe you can do 2 more reps. Maybe you can do cardio this day instead of just lifting. You can do both. I really had to get back into that headspace. And so this is a little long winded, but I wanted to explain this to you because I think our identity is the thing that's missed when we look at setting goals, who we want to be, how we want to show up, and our belief in ourselves. And sometimes it's just that one action sets the stage for you to do the next thing because you believe you can, and the next thing that you believe you can. But if you don't let that momentum continue to move forward and compound, you can find yourself very much, and you did the thing, but then you went straight back to old patterns, especially if you have a history of not following through or failing the goals or not completing the project. So you have to do kind of one thing, go all in, optimize it, let yourself experience that win, and then say, okay, don't let those big gaps happen, basically. That big gap, like I had for all of February, I'm still kind of mad at myself because I'm like, why didn't you have something else? Like, again, but as I set that one goal, it was so big, it was all I could focus on. And I couldn't set up, okay, and so February, you're going to do this, 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 because I would have checked out of that. I would have checked out of that and said, no, I can't. And I would have just abandoned ship. So here's where you can set big goals and really push yourself and reach, but doing it on one thing, on one goal, one project, one aspect of your life is very different than had I tried to like radically change my nutrition and my work or like, 10 other things in my life at the same time. So that is kind of the exception to the rule of like pushing. But the thing is, once you master that one area and you push and you push and you perfect, then you can maintain that because it becomes more effortless and natural. And then you can go to the next area, the next area. But you really want to go all in on one or two goals and really, 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 really commit. So anyway, that's just a little bit about kind of where my year was headed. It was headed towards the same place that last year was, to a place where I don't have goals and I don't follow through and I'm a little bit scattered and I don't finish things, to now I am at my mid-year point. And ever since that first week of March, I have nailed nutrition, nailed training. I decided I'm not just going to maintain this, but I'm setting a big goal to get in the best shape of my life at 40 years old. Like this year, it wasn't just the reclaiming of my identity with this one thing. I want to be the person that comes to mind when people think of fitness and nutrition and integrity in her word. I mean what I say and I say what I mean. Those are things that I think used to be synonymous when people thought of me or when I came to mind when I was an athlete and I owned a gym and I kind of was always exhibiting that behavior. That hasn't been a part of my identity for a long time. And I was like, you know what? I want that to be my identity intrinsically and externally. I want to feel like that because then I will operate like that. Someone who doesn't skip the gym, someone who doesn't just eat junk and, binge drink on the weekends, somebody who really shows up and follows through and gets shit done. And I have been doing that in every area of my life. And this brings me to kind of the part of my announcement. And then I promise I'm going to get to the 3 segments and the 3 steps that I want you to do to audit your life and shift this and apply everything that I just said in kind of a checklist kind of way on your goals and how to reclaim the rest of your year. So I decided as of June, a lot of things were leading up to this. And, I truly believe God kind of just puts things in your face and makes a lot of things happen. And you can kick and scream, or you can finally kind of say, am I being directed this way? Or am I being pointed this way or told this thing? And that had kind of been happening for a couple months. Training and everything was going good, but things in my private practice with clients, it's not that they were going horrible, but there was started to be this turbulence and this sense of like, this is not where I want to spend my time and how I want to uh, move my future forward. It was more, what are you doing in this role still when you still have all these other things over here that you can't get to? And that goes back to the whole capacity thing. Basically, I decided July 1st was going to be my start of stepping away from private practice again. I've transitioned all of my clients out. It just kind of, again, magically worked out that way. But I realized that for several of the goals, specifically my app, my book, and my membership program that I have been trying to launch for several years, constantly gets pushed by the wayside because when I have a client paying me for one-on-one, they are always the priority. The level of service and value that I try to give is just above and beyond, and it takes up a lot of mental headspace, a lot of time on my calendar, and a lot of effort mentally, emotionally. It's just a lot. It really, really is a lot. And 3 years ago, I made that choice to step away from private practice for the first time in my entire career. But then about month 7 or 8, because I had not, again, set the new habits and really committed to the other things that I was supposed to commit to. I had left these gaps in these spaces. What happened was I met someone who desperately needed my service. And I decided, well, I'll just see this one person. And then because I already had that structure and I was kind of in that headspace of seeing one-on-one people, I just let more and more clients. And before you know it, within an 8, 9 month time frame, I was back to seeing clients and that kind of being my thing. It had its place and it was a blessing, and I believe that that was for a purpose too, because those people, those clients, I've always believed people find me and the people I work with are very aligned. I have always just kind of believed that those are the people that I need to work with. So I'm happy that I did it. I can't say I have tons of regrets, but what I realized as this year was really getting rolling was that I stepped away from that for a reason. Not only did I feel like I had kind of evolved past that being what lit me up the most, but I evolved past that being as far as I could take my work. And I've always had a grand mission to do like big impact things, whether that's events or experiences or programs or a book. I've always had that vision. And so I realized you are being pushed out the door of this one-on-one container for a reason. And it's because those goals that you set several years ago still haven't been hit. And I really did what I'm about to walk you through with the assessment process, the inventory process, where I'm looking at here's my goals and why have I not hit them. And the truth was the bandwidth that working with clients one-on-one was taking up. I did not have the capacity. And by the way, I launched a secondary podcast through December and decided that I was going to take a whole other direction with things and got very scattered with that too. So I had to come back to center. Took that off my plate. I took another brand way back in December off of my plate because there was a peptide company that I thought was going to be my next chapter. Because you see, when you're not doing things that are totally aligned, you'll start to just latch onto stuff that's doesn't even make sense. And that's what I realized too. I was like, this doesn't feel good. But because I wasn't looking at what really wasn't working, I thought I just need to switch gears completely. So I'm going to go in the peptide space and I'm going to do that better than all the other, people out there. And then I was like, nope, that was the shortest company I ever had. 3 months. And I was like, no, this is not it. And I burnt it to the ground and walked away. And then I realized this other podcast isn't it either, because this is my baby. This is the podcast I'm not giving attention to and not able to show up to. So why am I going to start this other project? It's not that podcasting is hard or isn't aligned for me. As you can tell, I love to talk. I love to share thoughts and tools and perspectives with people. But trying to do two, I wasn't getting anywhere with either one of them. So I had to look at all of these things. The audit, that is like the first step that you do, is you really look at what's not working, what goal is not being hit, and why is that the case? For me, it was that I was doing one-on-one clients, and then I was trying totally out of alignment things that I thought would maybe light me up or feel good again, because what I was doing over here wasn't feeling all that good. And then I came back full circle to, no, Brain Body Speak is your mission. It's your movement. It is literally what you want to take to the world to help people live better, feel better, function better, and like heal, grow, and change for the better. This is your movement. Like, this is like, what are you doing? Step away from private practice, step away from the peptide companies, step away from the other podcast, and chop all of these huge things off of your plate. And then get really clear, focused, and organized with the remaining things. What's the number one? It's Brain Body Speak and the movement and bringing back full holistic health to people. Not just trauma healing, not just nervous system regulation, but like the full spectrum of health, fitness, nutrition, all the things that I love and that I've studied my whole life and that are now more than ever front and center for me. That was number one. Number two, I have this company called Zen in a Bottle that it's going on 6.5 years, that I love, but I also lost my heart for that. I lost my heart for that for a lot of reasons. And I'm like, I developed these 40 different products that are really great for people. And I stopped educating about that. I stopped telling people about it because I was too scattered and I was too overwhelmed. And I lost my heart for the impact of those things and how much like just taking the right magnesium can change someone's life. So I was like, do I keep that or do I get rid of that? Because I was for a couple months thinking I wanted to just literally burn that to the ground. And I was like, no, this is also a part of my movement, because the right nutrition and supplements are huge. They make such an impact on people, and we're quality medical grade lab tested products that aren't just trends and gimmicks and fads and, junk supplements thrown into something. And so I was like, that is part of the core mission too, the Zen mission. That is it. I want to keep that. And I can do that if I put the right structures in place. And so I'm narrowing everything down by getting rid of this, and this. And I know here's what I want to focus on: my community at large, through my podcast, through finishing and launching my app, which is going to be incredible and change a lot of lives. It's called the Brainwash app, and it's literally all the tools and then some that I take clients through. And it's every tool and method that I wish I could have in my pocket. Every single possible element of positive change in psychology, of building habits, of regulating your nervous system, navigating difficult emotions, all of that is in this app. And I'm so close. I just need to do a super hyper focused like sprint to get it across the finish line. So that's one of the big things. And then the free community, like the Brain Body Collective, which is a new launch of, let's just get people in a room and start talking again. I think I lost my heart for social media years ago. And I look online and I see all these like perfect, flawless 20-year-old influencers dancing on camera with these perfect edits. And I feel like I can't compete because I want to just sit and talk with people, or, kind of go deep with them or tell them about something a little bit more in depth. And I was like, nobody cares. I've had a very much nobody cares what I have to say attitude and belief system, which is another thing I had to evaluate with my goals. Why did I stop doing the podcast? Why have I not stayed consistent with the app? And there's fear of failure. There's fear of nobody cares. Nobody's going to like it. It's not going to matter. And there's a lot of beliefs around all of that. So I thought, you know what? Maybe there's 5 people that want to be in this community and have real conversations and get to know each other and talk about, all things health, fitness, wellness, healing. And so I took my low tox living group that had like 1,500 people in it. And I was like, look, I know you guys were here to talk about like low tox, skincare, beauty, household stuff, but you also followed me, throughout my journey and know that I talk about all things health. This is now converting into a mind body healing hub. And kind of the tagline is one place, all of you. And it's, let's talk about relationships. Let's talk about emotions, nervous system, brain, supplements, all of the things, because they all matter. And so I've gotten rid of all the things that don't matter. And I'm hyper focusing on the community, my podcast, my app. And then when the app is launched, my next publicly accountable goal is to commit to the level that I have to these other goals to finishing my books. That is where I struggle the most because it takes me so long to lock into something and to get in the focused and flow state, which I have not been able to do when I'm constantly switching gears 1,000 times to 1,000 different things every day. So my goal is for the next, couple months to really build these structures where I can go deep, hyper focus on one or two things, move the needle on them, and then, okay, next thing. Now I have the brain that's used to this. Now we can go deep and write this book. And so let me just back up and tell you again, I know that's a lot and it was all about my story and my progress. Because that's the personal updates that I want to share with you. I want to share with you guys that like real time, I navigate through all of these challenges and doubts and fears and failures, redirects. I have to hold myself accountable and coach myself too, just like anyone else. So I wanted to be raw and real with that. That's another commitment I want to bring back to my platforms as I've now stepped away from trauma therapist and my page being like a business page to like, this is just me and this is what I care about. And here's some tips and tricks. And it's not this perfectly aesthetic niche of trauma therapist and here's some content. Like this is just me. And if you like it, great. If you don't, no harm, no foul. Hopefully you learn something and hopefully you enjoy coming along for my journey. So that's kind of my story. That's kind of like my announcement, what I'm shifting away from. My Instagram will have an official announcement today that says like, this is no longer a trauma therapist page. It's me. It's Holly. And I'm going to keep the name Brain Body Speak because that's my, my personal brand. And it says so much about who I am and what I do. It's learning the language of health, happiness, and of your brain and body. But it's not going to be what it has been for quite some time. And that feels so exciting and exhilarating. So let's break these down. This is probably what you're here for more than anything. Let's break this down to how do we go through this framework ourselves? How do you look at on this day? And by the way, if you're listening to this at any point that's not the mid-year mark on July 1st, do it anyway. Absolutely do it anyway. Don't let perfectionist or, well, it's July 8th when I heard this, so I'm not going to do it. It doesn't matter. You can do this at any time. And that's such a mindset shift of saying it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a Monday or the first day of the month. Absolutely apply this anytime you find yourself off track with your goals. So let's dive into the first step. Again, your audit. Your audit is the first thing that you want to start with. Honest eyes on the page that says, where am I at? How close am I to those goals that I set? Do some of them need to change and be completely removed? And be honest with yourself about the reason they might need to be removed. And are there other completely different goals that I am feeling are more in alignment or more doable or, that make me feel more alive? Look at the reasons why you haven't reached the goal. It might be logistical. It might be bandwidth and capacity. It might be poor execution and discipline on your side, but it also could be that it's just like, this is not it. This is not the thing. So you want to be honest with why is this not working and why have I failed to show up and be the person I need to be to hit these deliverables and actually hit the mark and achieve this goal. Be honest with yourself there. Secondly, if you have to take some goals off, are the remaining goals enough for you? Are those ones that are really important and you want to keep? Like for me, when I said, get rid of the peptide company, get rid of this other podcast, but Brain Body Speak, that's where I actually want to go deep on. That's where I want to fully show up and commit. Look at what's left. If it's a top 3 priority, mark it as that. I would say no more than 3 big ticket priorities of what you're going to focus on. Either it's health goal or body transformation, you're going to train, eat a certain way, or like a career thing, but like pick 3 and prioritize them. If you took them all off or you have 10 left, then you still need to prioritize them and condense them down and decide the ones you're going to go all in on. Get rid of any that don't matter or that aren't relevant. And then maybe if you just got rid of everything because you're like, man, I was so off track and none of these things mattered. I didn't need to work on my finances or my career or my relationships. I need to work on myself and my body and my health. That was kind of where I was at when I kind of had that, tough love talk with myself at the end of February when I said, you're not going to be the person that achieves anything in life while you're just sitting around in your PJs day after day and hibernating and hiding from the world. You need to build this identity of that you are a go-getter, a mover, a shaker, a get up and do the thing kind of person. So, because I believe that's foundational for almost anyone, maybe that needs to be your focus for the next 3 months. And you let yourself go all in with that. You can't totally drop the ball. I mean, it's not like we can say, hey, I'm going to go work on my health and I'm going to just take 3 months off from work. At least I don't think that's an option for most of us. But you can say, no matter what else, I'm just going to maintain over here, kind of keep the status quo, keep my eyes on this element of my life because you never want to abandon completely. But here's where I'm giving the majority of my energetic units. Here's where my time, my attention, and my discipline is going to go. So that process of, do I need to push? Do I need to be more realistic? Do I need to check and see this? This is my goal still, but what needs to change so that I can achieve it? For example, you've been trying to work on going to the gym every day, but you constantly find yourself completely just bailing. By the end of the day, you're tired, you come home, you just don't have it in you. Well, maybe going to the opposite end of the extreme and saying you're going to wake up at 4 a.m. to do it in the morning and you've never woke up early a day in your life, maybe that's too much. Maybe it's just enough for you to push and stretch yourself to get up an hour earlier if that's enough time. But you also have to think outside of the black and whites. End of day when I'm exhausted, first thing in the morning when I'm exhausted. What if you say, is there another option? Can I get creative here? And you decide that you've got an hour lunch break and it takes you, 20 minutes to eat. You can do a little workout on your lunch break. You can do it in your office. You can do it at home. You can go for a walk every day on your lunch break. Again, you have to be creative to start the action and the habit and the behavior somehow. Somehow you have to be willing to get creative. If option A and option B are neither one an option or they're not working well. So get creative and think outside of the box. You want to be pushing yourself. You want to set goals that are exciting, but they still need to be realistic and maintainable based on what you know about yourself. And that means you got to get creative sometimes. So I would say the third element, after you audit, after you prioritize and you really find that sweet spot and how to make things work, you're hyper focused on what's most important and you set up yourself and your schedule for success. The third and final step is ask yourself if you need help. I mean, I know I just stepped away from private practice, but I've coached and, done therapy of various different types with thousands of people over my career. And I will never not come alive when I think about the transformational power of just being in a one-on-one container. Even though I'm stepping away from that and I feel like there's something else calling me, there just truly is nothing better. And even with all this tech and, the platforms that are out there these days, which I'm building, they're helpful and they're great and they certainly can work if you use them consistently, but there will never be anything that even comes remotely close to comparing to having a single human that's accountable with you, that works with you long term. You're not just like having a one-off session, you're in a process and a program with them. They get to know you, they course correct you, they give you the tools and the tricks and help you not dig yourselves in holes and have these huge gaps. There is no comparison. There really isn't. And so that could look like a lot of different things based on what your goals are. And it could look like a therapist, a coach, a personal trainer, and you pay up front for 6 months or you sign a 6-month contract, something that locks you in for a certain time frame, 90 days minimum, 6-month markers are even better. But something. And if you don't have the means for that, because of course that's not in everyone's budget, then secondarily, look at apps and things that can support you. Like I mentioned, my fitness app, that fitness app has literally changed my life with the programming and the little habit tracker app that I put on my phone and all the little metrics. Like seriously, that app is so incredible for how it's helped me show up and stay consistent with my training and not have to think about it. Just to show up, push the button, go through the workout. And I spent 15 years of my life in the fitness space. I know how to train and exercise and program things. Why would I want to do that when there's all these apps and these tools that I can pay $20 a month for that take all the thinking, planning, and organizing out of it? And then lock me into a program because they do like these 6-week programs. It's so important that you find a way to plug into something outside of yourself and not give yourself that much credit, that you can just juggle, manage, organize, schedule, follow through, troubleshoot, and navigate everything by yourself. Like if that was how it worked for most people would reach their goals with no problem. So getting support is imperative. And if all else fails, because again, depending on what your goal is, maybe you're like, there's not an app and there's not a coach or a trainer. Maybe it's more spiritual, maybe it's more internal, but you can reach out to a friend or you can join a support group, find some type of community or peer mentorship where at least you can share your journey and be kind of publicly accountable to like, hey, here's my goal and here's what I want to do. Here's the actions that I'm going to do. And I'm going to come back next week and tell you guys how I did. And you follow through on that. There's where that follow through comes through. And you'll start to build a little positive feedback loop there when you show up and you're like, hey, I did the thing. And people can celebrate you, which by the way, this isn't even why I mentioned that, but that's exactly what the Brain Body Collective is about. Like that's one of the things I want to create there. On Wednesdays, we have this share your Wednesday wins. And it's in the last week, what have you done that's positive? People are like, I did my first photo shoot or I signed up for a trainer. It's just those tiny little things of publicly expressing and sharing and letting a community rally around you that really make a big difference. So I'm really excited to see that in the community. It's with anything, getting people's attention and getting them engaged in a group is kind of hard. So we're fresh there. There's not a lot of action, but I really want to encourage you to join the link in the show notes, get over into the Brain Body Collective Facebook group and go to the last Wednesday wins and say, I'm going to share something positive or I'm going to announce a goal that I have. Like make a post, introduce yourself and be publicly accountable to this community of fellow people who are committed to changing and growing and improving their mental and physical health. So that's kind of your action step takeaway. Go do the thing. But if that's not for you, you don't want to be in a Facebook group, you don't want to talk to strangers, find somebody. Find somebody, join an anonymous group, get an app, grab someone from church, a coworker, a friend, a family member, something, and tell them what your goals are and what your plans are and ask them to hold you accountable or tell them you're going to give them a check-in in a 7-day period and let them know how it's going. You will be shocked how just impactful that is. And in fact, I will say, without a doubt, had I not publicly decided to document my journey on Instagram with that stinking 5K, I would not have finished. I know that about myself, but once I had documented, and I was almost every time I would run, I would show a little picture or a video of my feet running. I was, telling people kind of why it was so important to me. I brought people through on the journey. And even when I thought nobody cares and nobody's paying attention and like 5 people viewed the story, I forced myself to keep doing that. And I can tell you that when I was out there running in the literal like 8 degrees, complete blizzard, 8 inches of snow and ice on the ground, and my eyelashes frozen to my face, could not breathe, could hardly move. I kept my feet moving because I could not stomach the thought of coming back and telling my friends and my followers, the people that are in my community, I couldn't do it. It was too hard. It was too cold. My feet hurt. I couldn't breathe. It was too difficult. I just couldn't. And, they say that you should do things for yourself and you shouldn't seek outside validation and all the things. Yes and no. There's like a middle ground and there's kind of truth to both sides. And if you can capitalize on the fact that you don't want to look like a failure or a loser or someone who gives up on things to the people who you publicly announce something to, then absolutely capitalize on that. Like that's what I did. And that's why I wanted to come on and kind of tell you where I'm at real time here with my goals, with some of my failures, with how I've been overextending myself, the tough conversations I've had to get myself recentered, refocused, the things I've had to let go of, and the way I'm hyper focusing on building some things from the ground up and finishing some projects that have been floundering for a while because they haven't got my full attention. And I plan on really sharing more and more of my journey about being in my best shape ever at 40, because I have about 12 pounds less that I'd like to lose. And then I want to continue to really build muscle and just get myself in a physically strong state, both, from a performance and health standpoint, but also aesthetically. Like, I want to look good and better than I ever have. And I really think I have the knowledge base to do that in a way that I couldn't do in my 20s when I was just, never sleeping, not eating enough, over caffeinated, and running myself into the ground. So there's always a possibility to create a new version of you, whatever that looks like. For me, it's going to be the person who shows up and who has that athlete, tough, badass energy, and she applies that to every area of her life. She sets goals and she follows through on them. She does all of these steps. She audits herself. She gets real with herself. She keeps the priorities, and then she's publicly accountable to people in a way that holds herself to a high standard. That's my identity, and that's how I'm moving forward with this next half of the year, because I'm going to finish strong. And when I hit that 41 number, on the age mark, I'm going to feel so much better, and I'm going to have next goals, next goals, next goals. The final thing that I want to share with you guys is just a little bit more about what's to come to get you excited for this. The Brain Body Collective is the free community. We'll do some workshops there. Again, I'm going to get back to talking about all the things I love, from nutrition to movement to free nervous system tools. There's going to be a lot of goodness there. Next up, we're going to do the Mindful Miles Challenge in the fall. And that is something you do not want to miss. Make sure you're plugged into my email list, in the community, following my stories on Instagram. That is going to be such a cool first step for the Brain Body Collective community to go through together. And then it's also a little teaser going to lead us up to, I'm going to take people through a 5K winter training. I decided that since I didn't get to run my actual race on my birthday month last year, I still want to do that. I still want to go do the number and the race and do the thing with all the people. And so I'm going to give myself a little bit longer of a runway this time. I'm going to keep my training and my conditioning up. My body's stronger this time. And so we're going to do the Mindful Miles early fall, get you walking, get you moving. And then we're going to gently transition into a 5K. And whether you've ever ran in your life or you just want to walk or whatever it is, I would encourage you to be thinking ahead of, can I start walking now in July to be able to do the 40 miles in the fall of walking, to be able to start running and building up my endurance for a 5K? Can I push myself out of my limits and do something just almost inconceivable for me? Yes. Yes, I actually can. And I'm going to, and I'm going to do it with this community and this group. And I'm going to follow along someone who just did it last year. And I'm going to create my best health and my best version of me at whatever age you are and whatever season you're in this year. And I'm going to start doing it right now. So just some cool, exciting things that are coming up that I can't wait to share more with you guys about. But it's going to get good in here. We're going to bring back community. We're going to step away from all this chaos online. We're going to get you back to tangible action steps like this. Audit your goals, shift things around, get clear. If you follow all of these steps and then you tag me in a post and say, I listened to this podcast and I'm going to be publicly accountable. Here's what my goals are. I will celebrate you. We will celebrate you in the group, and we will finish this year so strong. Trust me when I tell you, you have the capability, you have the ability to create so much positive change, no matter how crappy your year's gone or how down in the dumps you are or how shitty things are. Trust me, I know about things being really shitty. And you can pick yourself up and you can make it the best year ever. That's all for now. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know what your biggest takeaway was from this episode. And until next time, I'll see you later. Thank you so much for tuning in to Brain Body Speak. If you found today's episode valuable, be sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, and please, please consider leaving a review so that more people can find the show and benefit from this content. It means the world to me. I read every single one of them, and it really encourages me to keep moving forward with this mission and this podcast. Also, tag me on Instagram at Brain Body Speak and let me know what resonated with you specifically about this episode, and you'll be entered into my monthly giveaway of a free $500 value Brain Body Reboot course. To take this journey further, visit brainbodyspeak.com for free resources and to see our complete suite of self-paced programs. If you're ready to start nourishing your brain and body today, snag something from my premium supplement line by visiting zeninabottle.biz. Remember, 300 Zens, our magnesium product, is my absolute fave and my number one recommendation for people to get started. Until next time, remember, your transformation begins with your brain, your body, and your nervous system. And I hope you found value from this show that you can put into action today. Love and Zen. Until next time.